Hey guys, it's Mia Baker here and welcome to the third episode of Unsussed. For those of you who are new here, Unsussed is a podcast that delves into my world, my golf life, and basically just me figuring stuff out with you. I'll be here every Tuesday chatting to you about all things golf and everything in between. Don't forget you can DM me on Insta at MiaEllaX about anything you'd like me to chat about or discuss in upcoming episodes. I'm super excited about this episode because I love talking about this topic so much. Online coaching. For those of you who don't know, I've pretty much done all of my golf coaching online. I've had like one or two in-person lessons, but majoritively it's all been with my coach, Stephen Giuliano, who is based out in, I think it's Singapore. He was in Malaysia, then he moved to Singapore. And I'm based in the UK. So either way, it's very far away. There's time differences. There's just all sorts of different challenges, let's say. I love talking about this topic so much because it's just so interesting. I find it really fascinating, and especially as a beginner, someone who didn't know any of the concepts behind golf before they started, and then literally learning everything through my phone to become the golfer that I am today, to have the swing that I now have. Granted, I'm no Tiger Woods, don't get me wrong, but I would say I have definitely progressed quite a lot. And people have said my swing looks quite good. I don't know. I mean, it's Instagrammable. Maybe that's one of the things that comes out of online coaching, is you get very Instagrammable swings because you're constantly looking at it. But there's just so much to talk about, and you learn so much from it, and you become super analytical, and you basically become a teacher of yourself. It's so fascinating, and I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys today. Okay, firstly, why did I even go for online coaching in the first place? Now, I know most of you will know this, but it kind of came about by accident in a way. It was COVID, we were in lockdown. Realistically, I was never going to be able to get out to a coach anyway, but I'm super lucky and fortunate that Baden from Skillest, he's the CEO of Skillest, spotted me on Instagram doing an indoor drill inside. I was looking at YouTube videos at the time, basically copying all of the professionals, because I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I may as well be, or try and be, like the pros. And it was this drill that I was doing in the top room of my old house, inside, because obviously the weather was terrible. And he was like, this girl, well, he tells me he said this, but he was like, this girl, she definitely has some sort of drive or determination to get better, which is true. That is actually true, and he was very clever to notice that. So he ended up saying to me, oh Mia, I think you'd be a great proof of concept to kind of showcase how a beginner, someone who doesn't really know anything about golf, can learn golf through their phone. Super cool. I'm super into tech, so anything like this, using digital technology in order to basically make you better in some sort of way or skill. For me, this was golf. Of course I was going to do it. It's so cool. It's so interesting. And like, what's the worst that can happen? I just don't become very good, and then I have to get lessons a different way. And also, it was locked down. What other means of coaching was I going to get? I guess the first thing to discuss is Skillest versus YouTube versus in-person lesson. So I've had maybe a handful of in-person lessons in the whole of my golfing life, which has been all but 2 wonderfully difficult, funny, crazy, hard, but thrilling 2 years. I think YouTube is great. YouTube is great for free golf education, but it is a minefield out there. There's so much stuff on there, I wouldn't even know where to start. I went to start having a look and seeing, oh, you know, what should I work on? I didn't even know where to start. I was like, I don't know, where do I even go for this? There's just nothing out there. Everything's like fixing your slice or doing a draw or a fade. And I had no idea what a slice was. I didn't know what a fade was or a draw was. I wanted my ball to go into the air. That was it. I felt like a very simple request. Didn't really care how it got in the air. I just wanted it to go in the air. I just didn't want to miss it anymore. And I didn't want to duff it. And I just didn't want to look silly hitting a ball. So YouTube is great if you know what you're looking for. Then you've got in-person lessons. These are great too. And I think they're awesome. But the problem with in-person lessons, if you've got a very busy schedule, then you have to fit it around it. You also only get maybe 1 hour, or maybe you get 2 hours. And then you usually don't get another one for like a month. So then you're basically trying to remember everything you did in that 1 or 2 hour lesson, practice it, probably forgot a fair amount, and then going back to them a month later, either having not practiced at all because you've been so busy and you've not really had any sort of accountability because, I don't know, there just isn't any sort of accountability when you do those kind of lessons. Or secondly, you've been practicing the wrong thing, and that's not great. You know, you're practicing and you think you're practicing the right thing, and then you go back to the lesson and he's like, that's good, but the way you've been doing it's actually impacting something else now, so we need to now go back and fix that. Not ideal. But the difference is as well in person is you've got someone physically there, so they're able to show you and instruct you and move you, and that's so valuable as well. Like, you can't buy someone being physically there with you. Like, any sort of digital technology will never allow for the same interaction that you get face to face. Then we've got Skillest. Skillest is effectively, I would say it's like YouTube mixed with in-person coaching. And it's Skillest I'm going to be talking about mainly today because that's the application I've been using for all of my coaching. I think where we should start is, how did I choose my coach? Because I get that question so much, and I agree. There's so many coaches to choose from, and how do you know which one's going to work for you? You don't. Honestly, I think coaching is like dating. You have to date a few men or women or whatever in order to find one that's compatible. Same for a coach. I've had, well, you know, I said I had a handful of in-person lessons. Well, all of those in-person lessons, I didn't get on with, not that I didn't get on with them socially, I didn't get on with them as well as like a teacher-student kind of synergy. I truly believe that there are better coaches out there for certain people, and then there's better students out there for some coaches. And I think it's wrong for a coach to kind of want to hold on to a student if you're not compatible, and vice versa. Okay, so hear me out. For example, say there's a coach who's super logical, and there's also a student who also thinks super logically, and that's how they better learn and understand. But they're matched with someone who's way more like emotional in terms of the way in which they teach. And the logical and the emotional student aren't going to get on as well as a logical and logical student. So there's going to be compatibility issues there, let's say. Which is why I think it's okay. It's okay to test out coaches. Never feel ashamed, never feel bad that you don't go back to them, and just be honest with them. I think a coach would much prefer as well saying, look, I don't think I'm right for you, but I'm sure there's other people out there who are good for you. And at the day, if you're paying for it, you should be getting the education that you need because it's your money and it needs to be valuable to you. So don't be ashamed of that. My coach was chosen by Baden, and that's because I was very vocal to him. I was like, this is how I learn, this is the type of person I am. I'm very logical. I like someone to tell me how it is. I like to ask a lot of questions. I like to know the details. I like to know the technical bits behind things. I also like a lot of interaction. I'm quite maybe a needy student. I'm a needy student, and I want someone who has time for me, regularly. So I don't want to be left monthly. I wanted to get better, and I wanted to get better quickly. So that was really important to me. Some people want to get better, but they want to do it over a long period of time because they have other commitments. That's also fine. Everyone has their own kind of journey, their own kind of, I don't know, everyone has to fit it into their life. Do you know what I mean? Stephen was recommended to me, and he is honestly my favorite person ever. He's the best coach I could possibly have ever had. He's helped me through so many things, and I'll go into that a bit later, but he's helped me from not only my swing, but my mental approach to the game, my mental approach to practicing. You have no idea how many times I have wanted to give up, pack it in, not do the sport anymore, because I've just found it so difficult and I felt like I was moving backwards and not forwards. He's helped me through those moments, and I'm so grateful for that. In terms of how Skillest works, basically you get matched with a coach. You either choose a coach, and they have a lot of coaches on the app. I'm just going to say this isn't a sponsored podcast or anything, but I just think it's a really interesting thing to talk about, and I get so many questions on it. Skillest is an app, and it basically presents you a load of these coaches. Now you can click on these coaches and you can kind of have a look at some of their demo videos. So they've kind of got previews of the way in which they teach, what they teach like, just to give you a kind of a feel. Then you can either buy like a one-off lesson, or you go for a subscription lesson. People ask me, is it expensive? Is it not expensive? It depends what coach you go for. It can be expensive if you go for an expensive coach. It can be cheap if you go for a cheap coach. That's entirely up to you. A subscription lesson was effectively what I had with Stephen. It means you could send an unlimited amount of videos to him over the course of a month, and he will send his responses back. I would say it's better value to use subscription if you're wanting to practice a lot and you're going to be sending a lot of videos. Otherwise, one-off will obviously be better if you're not going to get the use out of it. In terms of what happens, you basically choose one of these options and then you start sending videos. So for me, I was like, Stephen, I'm a super beginner. I don't really know what I'm doing. I've watched a few YouTubes and I keep missing the ball. He was like, okay, send me your swing. Let's see where you're at. I sent him a video of my swing. To do that, I just have a tripod. I literally bought a tripod from Amazon. It was like $19.99. I've literally had it my whole golfing life. I've actually had to buy a new one because my last one broke. I still got the same $19.99 one because it's super light. It just fits into my bag. Where you're meant to put your drink, I just put in my tripod. Perfect, ideal. And it's what I use for all of my Instagram videos. Just hold my phone, stream me. I send him my video and he's like, okay, she is a real beginner. Maybe he was thinking, oh, actually, this is great. This is really interesting because now I can actually try and literally, well, he could mold me. He literally had a chance to mold someone. This like baby morphable golfer who has no bad habits, also has no good habits. They just have no habits at all, who's willing to learn, and it'd be such a good way to develop communication as a coach. I've spoken actually to a few coaches about this and they've said it's been absolutely incredible. Trying to explain things over a camera is so difficult. If you've ever tried to explain something to someone, even over the phone, and it's so hard, like showing people is so much easier when you're in there in person rather than having to show it through some sort of screen. Anyway, when we went to start our coaching, I was like, okay, I'm gonna hit the ball. I'm really excited. What are we gonna work on? And Stephen was like, Mia, we're going to take the club away and you're not going to use it. I was like, what? I'm literally here to learn to hit a ball. And now I'm taking my club away and I'm not going to be hitting any balls. I was trusting the process because I didn't have anything to lose, to be honest with you. And I think it's super important that you trust your coach. You have to trust them. If you don't trust them, then they're not right for you. Gosh, I sounded like a teacher then. I sounded very stern. Not meaning it sternly. I just think it's really important. And he told me to do these movements, body movements, just body movements. And I was like, okay, he's going for the full foundation body movement kind of route. I like it. And we did it every single day. I sent him a video every single day. He sent me a video back every single day. I practiced the body movement of just my legs, of just my torso, like kind of trying to combine everything together, each day developing a little bit more on the body movement I'd learned the previous day. And after a few weeks, and I was practicing this for maybe like 5-10 minutes a day. It really wasn't much. It wasn't like I was having to do hours and hours of practice. I didn't have hours and hours of practice. I was working so much. I literally had 0 time. But I did have 5 minutes. I had 10 minutes. I had that time when I was waiting for my coffee. I was sat at my desk all day. It was so easy for me to just get up and do some of these movements. I actually didn't really know what I was doing. I couldn't really see the end goal. I was just trusting the process. I was trusting Stephen. I mean, this could have all gone tits up. Luckily, it's not gone tits up, but I don't know, it could have gone tits up. I had no idea. I was literally going in blind. So we were sending these videos backwards and forwards, like every single day. I think Skillest now call this the little and often model. I have a whole model dedicated to me and my learning. How crazy is that? I don't know if it's dedicated to me and my learning, but I definitely inspired it. Anyway, I used to call it the little and often learning approach, and I think it's kind of caught on. It's such a good way to go about your golf though. I think it's so much better than doing once every month. You're way better off doing a little bit every single day because you want it to become natural. You want the movement to just be intuitive. That's all golf is. It's repetition. It's literally your body doing the same motion again and again and again. and it's something we all strive towards, except none of us work hard at it every single day. We just kind of go back out and are like, so why does my swing still suck? Well, have you worked on it? No. So there's your answer. All those golfers who are on tour, they practice every single day. Everything they do, they don't even have to think about it because it's so intuitive to them. I think that's kind of what you've got to get to. You've got to get to the point where it's literally just muscle memory. You don't even have to think about it. You can think about other stuff because your body's just going to do what it's used to doing. Don't get me wrong, there were times when we would send videos and I'd send it back and Stephen's like, not like that. And I was like, oh, but I don't understand. Like, I pride myself on being able to copy something quite well. I think in my childhood I spent a lot of time analysing. I was very, 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 very introverted, and I just watched people. I watched the way they interacted, I watched the way they did things, and that's how I learnt. And so I think watching videos and watching other people tell me what to do is I wouldn't say it's easy for me, but maybe easier for me than some other people. I'd practiced throughout my life copying other people so I could learn the skills that they had. There were also times when he would say words to me and I'd be like, Stephen, I don't know what that word means. And he'd be like, oh, okay, let's go back, let's do some explaining. And I'm like, okay. And you have to have that constant interaction, I feel, when you first start, to make sure that you're not implementing any bad habits. Practice with purpose. Don't just practice, because if you practice any old thing, then you're gonna come out with any old thing. If you practice with something specific in mind, then you're gonna come out with exactly what you intended to kind of practice and implement in the first place. Because you're doing a little bit every day, you don't really notice the progress you're making, but also you don't feel, I don't know, I didn't really get that feeling of, oh, I'm not getting anywhere, this is taking too long, because I was always working on something new. Whereas if I did, say, an in-person lesson and I didn't really work on it for a month and then I came back and I was in exactly the same position as my last lesson, I'd be like, well, now it's been a month and I haven't even progressed and I'm in exactly the same level of golf as when I started. That's not very fun. At least here I felt like I was moving. Like, I was going forward, even if slowly, I was going forward. And this is what really taught me how to learn and appreciate the journey. Like, throughout my whole life, I have wanted everything now. Like, I'm so impatient. I want to learn to play the piano now. I want to learn to be the best chef now. I want to learn to code now. Like, every skill I want it immediately, and I feel like I try and practice it really, really hard in the hope that I'm suddenly going to get it overnight. And I used to get so frustrated at myself. I'm like, why am I not getting it? Why is it not going in? Why am I not best? And I just wasn't enjoying the journey of anything. But golf has taught me that's what you need to do, and that's what keeps you at it, and that's what makes you brilliant. Brilliance comes from working at something over time. That's how all of those professional golfers have become brilliant, because they've been grinding. They've worked so hard. They've not just had it handed to them on a plate. Granted, there are some golfers who need to work less hard than other golfers, but overall, they've all had to spend a lot of time and a lot of effort to get to where they are. Also, another great thing about practicing for like 5 or 10 minutes every single day is, for busy schedules, it was so perfect. I didn't have to spend hours and hours of my day working on something, especially when I didn't have time for it. And then over time, gradually, a club was introduced. He actually told me to get this mini club, an indoor club. It was basically an old 7-iron. So one of my friends, he had an old Wilson 7-iron, and I asked if he could cut it down to 2 foot. So he cut this club down to 2 foot in length. And that's what I used as my indoor drill club. And I think lots of you have seen it or have asked me where I've got it from. I literally got someone to cut it down for me. I don't even think you can buy them. But it's so helpful. And it also means that you're not hitting windows or walls or ceilings or anything, because it's just that bit shorter. And that's what I used. That's what I used so much. I wasn't hitting balls, but I was just learning the movements of my arms, of my positioning, of how to hold the club. And it was super tiny, super transportable, could sit on the sofa, keep practicing my grip, that type of thing, dead easy. Then the next stage was actually hitting a ball. Luckily at this time I had access to a garden, and so I bought a golf net and a golf mat. Unfortunately I don't have the same access to a garden, but I did back then, which was, it was very, very lucky of me to have had access to a garden. And we just hit balls. The crazy thing is, I did not see my ball flight for such a long time. I started as a really, really, really bad golfer, like the ultimate beginner golfer. Then I spent months, I don't know how many months, maybe like 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, something like that, just hitting a ball into the net. I had no idea how far my ball was going. I had no idea which direction my ball was going. I had no idea about any of it. But the benefit of that was I wasn't trying to correct any of my movements. So Stephen had me as this like perfect shell of a student. I was literally there doing as I was told. I wasn't looking at my ball flight thinking, oh, maybe if I did this, then I'd be able to make it go straighter, which is such an easy thing to do because all we strive for is to have that perfect shot. But what we don't realise is sometimes the way in which we try and fix our shots to make that perfect shot is actually going to impact something else. And I learned that quite quickly. So being totally blind while I was practicing my golf was kind of a blessing in disguise, to be honest with you. Don't get me wrong, there were points where I just felt like nothing was happening. I felt like I was going backwards. I felt like I was getting worse and I just didn't understand. It was always when I learned something new. I think my brain can maximum have 3 new things. And if I got, say, 4 things in my head, no, nothing, everything falls apart. 3 things I can just about manage, 4 too much. I basically needed to take these new concepts, new ideas, new motions and learn them enough to the extent where they became somewhat intuitive. Or I didn't have to think so consciously about them. I could think a little more subconsciously about them. Only at that point was I really able to kind of move on to the next thing. So sometimes that took time and sometimes it was quite frustrating. But like I said, I had to trust the process. I had to trust Stephen. I don't think I could have done this on my own. There's no way I would have been able to have the motivation or determination to keep going and doing these things if I didn't have a coach. They give you that accountability and that stability, and that's another thing about having, you know, daily videos sent back and forth, is the fact that you've got someone constantly monitoring you. For instance, weight loss, right? People who get personal trainers, nutritionists, the ones who are most successful are the ones who have someone accounting for all of their exercise, all of their food intake. I just think people work better like that. I think people work better together. We did have Zoom calls, so there were times when Stephen would call me on Zoom and would have a lesson in real time, and they were always really, really cool. Because on a video, obviously, you never get to chat to your coach. You want to send the shortest amount of video with the most information, because what's the point in sending like a half-an-hour video where it's just chit-chat? It's not really effective. They're always short videos. So when we got to have our real-time FaceTime calls, it was so nice because I just got to chat to Stephen, we got to know each other. He would help me with my swing. I'd get instant feedback from what I was doing, and that's something in-person lessons are amazing for. Anything you do, someone is there and they can fix it immediately, or they can help move you immediately. With a video, often it takes a day or whatever time zone or speed that you and your coach work at, and that can sometimes be difficult. And then there were times where I just was so frustrated, and I was like, Stephen, I don't know what's wrong. I'm incompetent, I can't do it. He's like, you're not incompetent. And I'm there utterly convinced I am categorically rubbish at golf. I'm the most incompetent person that's ever tried to play. I don't even understand the point. Why do I have to work so hard? And then I feel like other people can just pick up a club and hit the ball and they're just awesome. Which obviously isn't the case. So many people have been playing for such a long period of time, and I had literally barely been playing at all. But it just felt like that, you know, when you're surrounded by people who have been playing and who can hit the ball, to be the worst can be so difficult. But that's where Stephen was amazing. He was able to talk to me. He educated me on how to learn. That's something that I think is so valuable, and I think it's something that a lot of us, well, I don't know. Would I have ever learned how to learn had Stephen not taught me how to learn? Maybe not. Maybe I'd have read about it, or someone else would have educated me on it. I don't know. It's just really interesting. And then you also become super analytical, and that's incredible. For example, I would watch a video and Stephen would obviously tell me what I need to do. Okay, you need to get your left shoulder to go down and around. And so I would film my video and I'd be like, no, that's not exactly what Stephen did. And then I'd film it again. No, that's not exactly what Stephen did. And again, and again, and again. And it became this obsession with trying to create the perfect video to send back to Stephen, where I was doing exactly what he was doing perfectly. And then obviously for Instagram, that's why all of my content is perfect. Well, it's not perfect, but it was perfect at the time of me making it. Like, it's the best swing I could have done at my stage of the game, if that makes sense. So for me, it was my perfect of the time, the best I could have done. And that's not saying all of the videos, all of the swings, all of the shots I've done have been like that. They haven't. But by constantly striving to create that or recreate that, it then educates you and forces you to do that practice with a purpose, which is what I spoke about previously. If I didn't have any sort of aim, any sort of goal, I think I'd have been so bored. It would have been so boring. But because I was trying to attain something that someone had shown me, then I had a reason. Without that, yeah, I'd have been dead bored. There's so many times when people are like, why do you like practicing? I love practicing. Practicing is so much fun. But what people don't realise is when I practice, I always have something very, very specific in my mind that I want to achieve by the end of the session. I never go into a session just willy-nilly hitting balls. Yeah, that would probably be boring after a while. But if you're really trying to do something, it's not boring at all. So yeah, some of those emotional times were some of my most valued times with Stephen, where he just helped my mind kind of get through things. He helped me when I was stressed. He helped me see golf for what it is. And over time, I've come to probably not care less, but respond better. There we go, that's it. Respond better. What did I like most about it? Or what do I like most about it? I like that I had or have access to golf coaching and golf training at all times. I have all of my videos, all of my progress from when I started. I can see it there. I have all of the videos that Stephen has sent to me, all of the education, it's there. I can go back to it at any time I want. There's never a, oh, I don't remember what you said. I go back to the video, I watch it again. I also really just liked having something else to focus on. I'd say once I left uni and started working, I didn't really have hobbies. I mean, I played the piano, that was kind of a hobby. Then I was like, oh, I'm gonna learn to code. So I started building websites. That was kind of a hobby, but it wasn't a hobby. I was a huge gym bunny at uni, like obsessed with it, went every single day. Started working, didn't really go to the gym that much. I just didn't have anything. Golf became my hobby. It became my life. It became my obsession. It now is actually my life, but it's good because I'm still obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with every single element of it. I'm obsessed with talking about it. I'm obsessed with getting better. I'm obsessed with the process, the mind games it plays on you. It's so strange because when you start golf as a kid, you don't think about any of these things, but as an adult, when you're learning a new skill, you're so much more aware of everything that's going on around you, and learning a skill as an adult is so fascinating. I'm finding this whole process incredibly interesting and I'm just in love with it. I love it. I love every single second that I'm immersed in golf, in the golf worlds. I love learning things. So learning golf and doing it for a living now is just, I don't think I could have asked for anything more than this. I don't think there's anything in the world I would rather be doing than this. What I found most difficult, probably the time zone stuff, you know, not getting that feedback straight away. That can be quite challenging, that can be quite hard, but you know that it is going to come in say 24 hours or something, so it's not the end of the world. But yeah, if you're particularly not understanding a video that came through, then you're like, okay, I have to wait 24 hours to get a response on this, and that can be difficult. Also, another thing that I forgot to mention is waking up every morning and watching a golf video means golf is constantly on your mind from the moment you wake up. And because it's like consciously on your mind, you think about things a lot more and the way you move a lot more. And I don't know, weirdly, I think you can learn just thinking about it. Like I could go to sleep thinking about golf and in my sleep I feel like I'm revising my golf. That's something I found super weird, but also weirdly good. I don't know, it's a weird one, but it's just in my mind constantly, oh, improve this, how am I going to make myself do that? And then you have these eureka moments where you're like, oh my god, this is what I need to do, and then you want to go and practice it immediately and you're super excited, and then does some work, and then you go on this, it's just like this weird mad circle that you keep going round and round and round to kind of get this perfection of a swing, to hit this perfect ball, to get that perfect shot. Wow, it's so mad. This game is so crazy. In terms of my learnings overall, as I've got better and my swing has got better, I've needed to go out on a course more. So a lot of the time my golf was on the range or at home or inside doing indoor drills, which was great when the weather was terrible in England. Doing an indoor drill, it means I was keeping up my golf without actually having to go outside, especially when I moved back to London. I didn't have access to the garden anymore, so that was a bit more challenging. But now obviously I'm a bit better and I need to get onto the course, then I have like a whole new, well, I've just got a whole new world of golf I need to kind of learn to understand. I'm super comfortable, super confident at the range. It's my home, it's like what I've known. I love practicing so much, it's my favourite thing to do. The course I was very scared of, and it's only recently I've become less scared of it, but initially I was so fearful. I didn't want to be told off, I didn't really know what I was doing, I didn't know the etiquette, I just didn't want anyone to be like, why is she doing this? And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing out here. It was very overwhelming. I was hitting off grass, I never usually hit off grass. I mean, if I could get down to courses which do have grass ranges, then yeah, I'd have more grass experience. Otherwise I didn't, and I was hitting off mats. So my development is needing to change somewhat now. But when Stephen talks to me and tells me things, I'm so much more receptive because I understand things quicker, because I've just got a greater knowledge of golf and the swing and what I'm trying to do. I didn't know anything about attack angles, I didn't know anything about club path, all of that stuff. I was like, what even is an open and closed club face? I have no idea what you're talking about. Now I get it a bit better, which means I can learn it easier. But you can't go from not knowing it to knowing it. You have to go through that process of learning. Actually, I just remembered something in terms of what was quite difficult. Okay, this is so interesting. I find it interesting anyway. So when you film a golf swing, you've got your down the line and you've got your front on. Now, what I used to do, I don't do this anymore, this is a very bad thing to do, but I used to do this, is I would try and perfect something down the line and make down the line look perfect. Send it to Stephen. Then I would do my front on swing, but I would change stuff to make my front on swing look perfect. But if I was actually filming my front on and down the line swing at the same time, it wouldn't be perfect because they didn't match up. I was changing things which were not the right things to change in the hope that I was getting that perfect swing shot, which is a really bad thing to do because I'm basically distorting the swing that I'm trying to achieve. Whereas if I give Stephen like a full honest 360 review of what I was doing, he would actually be able to see, she's doing it here, which is really good, but she's not doing it down the line, so we just need to tweak this and then it would make it better. And it's so easy to do that. Like I was subconsciously doing this. I was just trying to get what he asked for. I wasn't thinking about what impact does it have on this angle, what impact does it have on that angle. Now I strive to always give a really honest view of my swing, front on, down the line, so it's a full 360. That's something that's really hard to get across in video, because you do a down the line video, unless you've got another phone that can film your front on at exactly the same time, you're gonna get slightly different swings. That's really difficult, but if you are aware of it and you know that that is going to be the case, don't try and manipulate your either down the line or front on swing just to try and make it what you think it should be, because it's going to affect something else. And I guess something that goes hand in hand with that is I've really come to learn that changing or tweaking one little thing in your swing can have such a huge impact elsewhere, and it can be a good impact or it can be a bad impact. For example, I could have thought about pushing my left knee into the ground, which has a positive impact because it also helps me push my left shoulder into the ground as I start my downswing. But if I just thought about pushing my left shoulder down into the downswing, it actually didn't positively impact my left knee. And so it didn't have the kind of result that I wanted because I was thinking about it in the wrong way for my brain and for my body to move. I don't know if I've explained that very well, but what I'm trying to say is sometimes you have to think about things differently to get a result that you want that could actually have a positive result elsewhere as well. Sometimes by tweaking something, it can actually impact something else, and it could be positive and it could be negative. So you just have to be aware of that. In terms of recommendations, would I recommend in-person, YouTube, Skillest? I'm not going to sit here and say you should do online coaching. I'm not going to say you should do in-person lessons, or I'm not going to say you should do YouTube. We all learn differently. When we were at school, we saw that firsthand. We all learn so differently. So you've got to find what works for you. I think a bit of in-person is great, mixed with a bit of online coaching. YouTube can be fantastic because it's free. But the problem with YouTube is you can easily oversaturate your mind and your brain. And I think that can be really confusing, and it can kind of mess up your swing a little bit. If you're really specific and know exactly what you're looking for, YouTube is great. And the great thing about it is there's so many different coaches on there who explain the same thing in a different way. So you'll find a coach who says something that resonates perfectly with what you want and what you need, and you'll see great results from it. But you could watch someone else and they say something differently and it messes up your swing because it just doesn't work for you. And there's nothing wrong with that. As long as you learn that quickly enough that you don't start practicing it and ingraining it into your swing, you'll be totally fine. What is difficult is knowing what you need to learn and ingrain, and you're getting bad results because you're learning it and it's a new process, versus what's actually bad and you shouldn't be doing because you're not quite doing the movement correctly. For me, my perfect combination is obviously Skillest because it works in with my schedule, but I would love to have a bit more in-person lesson with Stephen. Obviously he's super far away. I'd love to be able to go and fly out to Stephen, maybe stay out in Singapore for 2 weeks or something, just see him in person, experience golf with him in person, have those in-person lessons. That would just be an absolute dream for me, to be honest with you. I really want to save to be able to do that at some point in my golfing career over the next year or so. We'll see if it actually happens, but that would just be like, it would be so awesome to be able to do that. Honestly, I would just try everything out, see what works for you, and then go from there. You don't have to do it all in one day. You can do it spaced out over time. Ask for coaching for your Christmas present, birthday present. It's such a valuable thing to invest your money in. No one can take a skill away from you. They can't. Regardless of what it is, that stays with you forever. If you're new to golf, even before investing in clubs, I would get yourself a lesson. You'll have clubs there that you can borrow. They'll teach you things you can practice at home, like all these dry drills that I did for, I swear, it felt like months. Maybe it wasn't months, but it felt like months. And it will help you so much, because for me, they were such foreign movements. I needed to practice, I needed to learn, and I'm one of those people who has to know like a certain amount before I can just jump in. Some people can go in having no knowledge and be super confident and super comfortable in that environment. I'm not. I was always like a reviser before I went and did something, because I like to know, I like to be secure, I like to be safe. I just don't like to go in clueless. So for me, I needed this, and this has worked well for my personality type. Also, if you do have any questions that perhaps I've not answered on this from my own personal experience, feel free to drop it in the comments on my YouTube channel, or you can DM me on Insta. But I feel like YouTube would be quite a good one, because then all of the questions are there together. And yeah, I can maybe do another one of these in future if you found this one interesting. I just love talking about it because I just think it's been amazing. I've loved every single second of it so much. Thank you so much for joining me on my third episode of Unsussed. It's honestly been such a pleasure to have you here with me again. Make sure you don't forget to follow Unsussed so you never miss an episode. And remember, feel free to DM me any questions or stories you'd like me to chat about next week on Instagram. It's @MiaEllaX. Chat soon.